Good morning. My name is Aaron Johnson, and I'm with the Dwayne Johnson Group and Bridger Financial Services, and welcome to our YouTube channel. We believe you deserve financial advice based on your best interest. In our YouTube channels, we try to do a lot of different educational videos on different topics and maybe give kind of market updates, things like that. Today we want to talk about the debt ceiling and what it means for Americans. As we just saw, they raised the debt ceiling again and have basically put a temporary solution in place for now. There's always a lot of talk about raising the debt limit and the debt ceiling, and we know that every time this topic comes up, Democrats and Republicans start to fight. But what is the debt ceiling? What is the debt limit? And why, as Americans, should we care? And don't just think that it's one party over the other. This isn't just Democrats versus Republicans, and it's not just that problem. It's both. Both continue to add to the national debt, though they typically differ on how they want to pay that debt down. So what is the debt ceiling and why does it exist? So the debt ceiling is a limit on the total amount of government borrowing. This was first put in place by Congress in 1917. It was meant to give kind of a blanket authorization to the Treasury Department to borrow up to a set amount of money. Lifting the debt ceiling was once a fairly routine vote, though as the debt has become a much larger percentage of our gross domestic product, or our GDP, the debate has turned particularly hostile amid growing partisan divide in Congress. Now, since World War II, Congress has raised the debt ceiling nearly 100 times. Now, what is national debt? Just like our debt that we might have in our homes, or credit card debt or car debt, it is the debt that the government takes on. Almost every year, the government spends more than it is collecting in taxes, and that's the deficit, that's the debt. To make up the difference, it borrows money in the form of treasuries, treasury bonds, treasury notes, things like that, and that accumulates over time. That's the debt. So where does the debt come from? Well, it comes from spending more than we are taking in on taxes from the American citizens or from businesses, things like that. The deficit spending and the national debt go all the way back to the founding of our republic. In the last half century, there have only been a handful of years when the government didn't spend more than it collected in taxes. Big increases in recent years have come not only from like spending during COVID, the wars in Afghanistan and in Iraq, but also covering the rising costs of medical costs of an aging population, and to fund all the other services the government provides, from highway construction to managing our national parks. But what are the biggest contributors to our national debt? So one is mandatory spending. And it's called this because it's kind of on autopilot. It doesn't need approval each year. And mandatory spending consists of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And that makes up 63% of all the spending that the government does. All other spending is what's referred to as discretionary spending. And this has to be voted on every single year. And that makes up roughly 30% of the overall spending as well. The remaining is interest that the U.S. pays on its debt. And it's the interest portion that is also the fastest rising cost in our national debt. So then it always comes down to, well, what happens if we don't raise the debt ceiling? What if we don't do that? What happens? Well, government could, some of their services could get cut. Some of federal employees' salaries and veterans' benefits may get delayed, but then will get funded. Our elected officials have to decide what spending gets cut or delayed, but Medicare, Medicaid legally can't get touched since they're part of that spending, but those payments can get delayed. So brief shutdowns have happened as recent as 2018. Both parties have always reached an agreement. The longest recorded shutdown was in 2018 into 2019, and that was 34 days. So in doing some research for this, here's some couple of things that I found interesting. Earlier this year, when we hit the debt ceiling again and the parties reached an agreement, within 5 weeks of that agreement, we added an additional $1 trillion to the national debt. In 5 weeks, we added $1 trillion to debt. So if you go to the usdebtclock.org, you can see a running total of our national debt, and I'll put that here. We're currently at $33,444 billion in debt. They also have a feature where you can go forward a few years if you want to. And if we just take it out to 2027, just 3.5 years from now, take a look at this, we're now $44 trillion in debt. That's amazing. And it almost kind of makes you sick to think about it. The other thing that I found interesting was that by 2051, just 28 years from now, interest on our national debt will be the single largest line item in our budget. Bigger than Social Security, bigger than Medicare, bigger than Medicaid, bigger than defense spending. It's almost immoral what we have done to this country and to our kids and grandkids that are going to have to continue to pay for this for generations to go. So what are some of the solutions, right? So, and I can't say that I have an exact solution here, but some of the most common things that we see our politicians talking about and in the media that they say could help get rid of national debt, there are really only two solutions. One, we either tax more or cut spending, or do a combination of both, right? So the first one and the most common one that we hear is just tax the rich more money, right? Tax the 1%ers. And there's a big difference when we talk about someone that is making or is worth billions of dollars, is a billionaire, and someone that makes $400,000 or more each year. But to be a 1%er, you just have to make a little over $400,000 a year. And let's face it, that is a lot of money. But if you have two spouses that are working full-time, they could conceivably be right in that range. So if we want to tax the 1%ers more, how much would we have to tax them? So if you were to take a look at every household or every small business that is making over $400,000 a year, you would have to tax them at a federal rate of 102% just to balance the budget. That's not even to pay down debt. That's just to balance our current budget. So obviously we can't tax them at 102% just to balance the budget. That's not feasible. So then we look at, okay, maybe that's not a practical solution. Let's increase taxes on those that are making, those families or businesses that are making $250,000 or more per year. So just to balance the budget, not to pay down any of the national debt, just to balance the budget, we would have to tax them at a federal rate of 90%, right? So this isn't even including state taxes. This is just federal taxes, 90% tax rate on those. And again, that only balances budget. It doesn't even start to bring down that national debt. So if our solution is to just raise taxes, guess who they're going to have to come for? Right, they're going to have to come for everyone, every class out there. The other solution is to cut spending, but that isn't going to happen either, right? Every day they're trying to figure out how to spend more money, how to take more and spend it on different things. So just imagine if we ran our own households the way that our government runs the country's finances, right? We'd be up to debt in our eyeballs and have to declare bankruptcy. And quite honestly, that's where we are now seeing, S&P and Moody's and those downgrading our national debt, because our debt is becoming such a large part of our GDP. Right, so there are a couple of proposals that are floating around out there. Again, nothing's passed yet, but it goes to show kind of where their mind is going to maybe help balance the budget or start to pay off some of the debt. And one of the things that they're looking at is raising the capital gains rates. So if you sold a home or stock and have a gain in it, right now the top capital gains tax that you would pay on those gains is 20%. The proposal is to raise that to 44%, right? So obviously, based on your income, you'd have these different ranges in there. So that's one. Another one is if you pass away and you own a home or you own a stock, let's say that stock you purchased at $100, it's worth $150. Your beneficiaries would be able to get a stepped up cost basis. So they would inherit that stock at $150 a share, not the $100. So they get that stepped up cost basis because that's when they received it. The proposal is to basically do away with stepped up cost basis so that if your beneficiaries inherit the stock that you purchased at $100 and it's now worth $150, they receive it at $100, and when they sell it, they're going to have to pay the higher tax on the higher amount on that larger gain. But they're also looking at adding in the estate taxes on top of that. So essentially, that $50 from $100 to $150 would be taxed at capital gains rates, and then also at a higher estate tax rate as well. This is why tax planning is so important. This is why we continue to talk to our clients about Roth conversions and specially designed life insurance all the time. We know the taxes are going to be going up for everyone, right? So what can you do now to plan for the future? Roth conversions, contributing to Roth IRAs. If you make too much money, you're making over a certain amount of money and you're married or single, you can do what's called a backdoor Roth contribution. If you have a Roth 401k at work, get as much into that tax-free as possible. So we know that tax-free money invested so that it's growing, so all those earnings are tax-free, is going to be the best thing for the future. So that's all I have for today, but our main goal at the Dwayne Johnson Group and Bridger Financial Services is to just make sure that our clients know that they can make it to and through retirement and can spend with confidence during those years. We want to make sure that they have financial security in any economy. And we help good people make great decisions so they can enjoy an amazing retirement. Thank you for watching this today. Please pass it on. Please like, subscribe, leave any comments that you may have, or shoot us an email as well. If you would like to come in and talk to us for about a consultation, our number is 951-244-6702. Again, 951-244-6702. You can also check us out online at DwayneJohnsonGroup.com or BridgerFinancialServices.com. Thank you and have a great day.